Microphones are on. Live streaming on.
Okay, welcome to tonight's City Council study session. For the record, today is February 18th, 2025. Call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Roll call. Council, everybody's here that's supposed to be here. Mayor Brorsma did ask for excuse absence. I haven't heard from Councilor Hart. We'll give her a few minutes and decide what we want to do there. And for the record, all members of staff are present for the exception of Chief Hallbrook and Chief Lehman. Chief Lehman asked for an excuse. Hallbrook, I haven't.
And Deputy Mayor, if I may, and I haven't followed up with her, but Councilor Hart had a family member was sick this morning, so she was supposed to come to the forum with me, but she didn't. So I'm assuming that she's probably dealing with that.
Mhm.
So she may have been too busy to reach back out. So just
Okay.
wanted to let you know that.
Okay. And then just for the record, councilors, just remember that we need to advise the chair or the Jackie. That is the way to get an excuse absence. So it has to be the chair or the city clerk.
Okay. So do we still have to do a excused absence or an excused absence for Councilor Hart, or?
We'll give her a few minutes and then come around and see if she comes. Okay, let's continue on with public comment. We have added the public comment section to the agenda since City Council is being asked to consider taking action on an item. Do we have, I believe we have some citizens are advised that they must limit their remarks to the council to 3 minutes. Council may refer items to staff to review and or research for presentation at a future meeting. And Mr. Kennard, you're up next. Pass. Okay. Ms. Kennard.
Good evening, Council. This is Kennard from Sunnyside, Washington. I wear several hats in Sunnyside. Tonight I'm here to talk about my part as a citizen. I am a member of the Park and Recreation Commission and was involved in the last meeting that they had regarding their goals and mission and objectives for the year. And out of that came a great discussion about the pool. And I'm at the last meeting, you all discussed and passed the proposal for a 2% tax. And I understand where you're coming from with that. Although as a senior citizen, I, have a $180 water bill that I need to worry about right now. So but I understand what you did, and I understand that it's in the best interest of our community and of our youth. What I'm most concerned about is that the last word I heard at the Park and Recreation meeting was that Mr. Raul Sanchez was going to be in charge of the operation of the pool. And if in fact we are going to keep the dollars conservative in operation of the pool, it's going to be really important that the person who is operating the pool has some insight or at least some counseling on how to operate the pool, how many lifeguards we need, what kind of hours we need, where this expertise is going to come from. And I'm just really concerned because Raul Sanchez already has a big plate. I have been on the Park and Recreation Committee for several years now, and it has been my cause to say, Vicki, I think you've heard me say this at a meeting, we need to separate out the pool from Park and Recreation. That is a business of its own. And I have been in business for myself before, and I know that you can't be anything and everything to everybody. Now, really honestly, I can't even swim. So I have no expertise when it comes to running the pool. But please, council, don't drop this on Raul and have these big expectations about how this is all going to come out financially without having some real expertise and influence to counsel him in how to make that all work with the right hours, the right number of lifeguards, the right number of training, all of those things that we need to do. We all want this to be successful, correct? So I'm just asking seriously, please, 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 don't just think, oh, we have this all solved now because we have a 2% tax increase. No, we need to all work together and we need to make sure that the operation is going to be managed in a professional and a way that we can continue, not just this year, but the next year and the next year and the next year. And so I appreciate your consideration and thank you for all that you're doing. And I will continue to support whatever the Park and Recreation wants to do. And maybe I'll even learn how to swim. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennard, and for serving in both Parks and Recs and the museum. Active agenda, wastewater treatment plant, digester heating system upgrades. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We're going to send this over to Raul Sanchez, but we wanted to get this in front of you for the digester heating system upgrades and approve this resolution to accept the bid results. So, Raul?
Thank you, City Manager. So yes, this is a wastewater treatment plant digester heating system upgrade. So what we have here is a digester boiler that's been in service since the mid-90s. For the last 3 years or so, it's gone through some repairs, replaced the tubing inside of it to get it going for a while. It did. And then the last couple of years, it's been leaking. So there's really nothing else that we can do as far as that goes. We also don't want it to completely go out because it's an important piece of equipment for wastewater treatment. So what we have here is January 23rd. We went out for bid. We had 4 bids. This is the lowest bidder, came in at $332,174. This is to do the work of removing the old boiler, installing the new boiler that has already been ordered. And this will also help with the treatment of sludge, which in turn, part of this treatment becomes biosolids, which is an important, it's a byproduct of wastewater for fertilizer that gets hauled out once a year. And with that, if you have any questions, I'd be more than glad to answer.
Council, any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Ridley.
Is there money in the public works for this?
So yes, this was budgeted in 24, going into 24 for this. So last year we started the actual work on design. And we also ordered the boiler.
Mhm.
And so this is for the construction side of this project that again was done in January 23. So this is coming out of the sewer fund, local funds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Councilor? How about questions, Raul? So like you said, this is just for the labor of installing the boiler, right?
So this is going to be labor and some of the items that are part of it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's including moving in, the labor, the some of the piping that's part of it, and removing the old boiler out of there. Yes.
And just for the record, if you could explain, I guess, what the boiler does in a digester system.
So the digester is a piece of equipment out there that needs to constantly keep the sludge at a certain temperature for the microorganisms to work properly. Just like we all have a stomach, it's a digester. We feed it constantly, and that's what we're doing to the digester. So as we feed it constantly, it's keeping the microorganisms alive, and the microorganisms are breaking down the sludge. Now, over X amount of days, it'll break it down to the point where it becomes now a sludge that goes out. It goes into what we have now is a screw press where we add a polymer, we remove the water, and we end up with a cake, and that becomes the biosolids. So what the boiler is doing, it has a heat exchanger, which is a piping, a tubing, and it just like an engine on a car, it's cooling, it's heating the outside, the opposite of what an engine cooling does, and so that keeps the sludge at a certain temperature so that it doesn't drop because the microorganisms have to stay at that temperature. So what this is doing, the jacket around it is keeping the water at the temperature that we want. And that's what the boiler's doing. It's just circulating it so that when the sludge goes through that heat exchanger, it will go back into the digester, keeps mixing it, keeps the microorganisms and the sludge in contact, and that's doing the treatment. And this digester is just keeping that water at the temperature that we want.
Okay. Is there going to be any disruption in service while it's being, I guess, swapped out?
So the plan is right now, the old boiler is still running. So that'll stay running until the new boiler gets brought in, gets put next to it, gets all installed until the very last minute when we need to do the switch over. So it'll constantly be running because it needs to. We may have to increase the temperature a little bit, so it gives us about a day or two of, it doesn't drop right away. It keeps as it's circulating, and depending on the time of the year, it may take a day just to drop a degree. So we have some time. If the timing is done properly and everything's ready, it should not take too much to just do the switch over.
Switch over. Okay. Council, any,
Good thing experts are doing it.
And we hired somebody that can come in and, yeah.
any further questions?
Date of completion?
We don't have that yet. This is just to award the project. Once the boiler comes in, which is still out, then once they start, then depending how everything goes. But we don't have that yet.
No time frame.
No.
Okay.
Okay, Council, if there's no further questions, what is the desire of council?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. I have a motion by Councilor Ripley and a second by Councilor Foster to approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept the bid results and execute all documents with award Schedule 1 of the project to SCI Industry Services LLC. Is there any debate? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. I also vote aye. Motion passes. All righty. Next item is lobbying efforts update. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So this is something that I wanted to get out to the public, and oftentimes the public asks, so what do you guys do in your free time with whatever free time that we have? And so most recently we all went to Olympia, and really good visit, and just wanted to update the public on kind of what we've been doing to advocate for the city. So we've been working with Colton Consulting and really lobbying for infrastructure this year. One of our huge needs are our well system. Well 6 and 7, as Raul has attested to over this past year, are in pretty dire need. One of the things that Raul was able to secure was the $1.6 million Department of Health grant. Raul, can you kind of give us the Cliff Notes version? It's a grant loan scenario, but that can knock out a huge issue for us in one of the well systems.
Yeah, so we have well 6 and 7, which we plan on rehabbing. So this is going to help us with these projects. So it's still, we got the letter. We're still probably a couple months out before we actually get the funding, but our plan is to replace whatever needs on these wells after we do some investigating as far as, testing and inspecting. And that's what the funds are going to be for well 6 and 7.
And some of the other things that Raul and his crew have been working on, not necessarily grant oriented, but we have been working with Cus Arteaga, who's done some consulting with us as well on our well systems. And initially it went out to bid for 800,000, but he started poking around, and with his contacts, they were able to go in there and evaluate it. And Daniel Chiliano and the crew have been looking at it along with Raul. And it looks like, Raul, it's going to be between maybe compared to now, putting it in context, between 800,000 to 40 to 70,000 to fix that. Can you talk about that a little bit in regard, because that's going to help us if we get the other money from the legislature to offset those costs?
So for well 7 that city manager's talking about is on that one, we, if everything goes right, we might be looking at, instead of the $880,000 originally estimated at, we may be somewhere in the 120,000 or so, with some of the work that we're anticipating that may resolve the issue with the rehabbing of this well.
Both? I'm sorry.
No, this is just for well 7.
7.
Yes. The other one, we haven't done anything yet. This is just well 7 that we have been working on, that we started on this one. So that's the update so far. And we're waiting to see what, some of the other parts that come back and see get an estimate on the motoring things.
So that puts us in a pretty good position. And to let the public know, Councilor Frausto, Deputy Mayor, and Councilor Vasquez, we all went to Olympia recently, and I thought it was a great visit. They really rolled out the red carpet for us, and we felt very welcomed. And some of the things I wanted to let the public know that we were looking for was funding for that other well for 800,000. So fixing wells are expensive. We're also looking for funding for Teenanoff Park to fix up the soccer field there. We've been talking about a Boys and Girls Club. They're looking for some seed money funding for us as well. And then also the gazebo enhancements. So those are other buckets of funding that we're looking for. Other things I wanted to let the folks out there know. We're developing a really good relationship with the Yakima County Development Association. So John and Joe over there are just great. And, they've been really coaching us up on what they call the SEED grant. It's SIED. I forget what the acronym stands for, but it's really infrastructure oriented. So we are going to go for, it's not guaranteed, but they've really evaluated our situation. They've looked at the Munson property. They've also looked at our well situation and the potential to get $2 million for funding for infrastructure for the Munson property, which could really help with economic development. So that's the one that Derek and I would prefer. So Derek, if you have anything to add in terms of, our work with YCDA and sort of what that grant would do to entice a developer to come to us, but that's one we're really focusing on right now.
I want to make sure I'm responding because I was just checking what is the price of a new municipal well in Washington.
Yeah.
You're talking about the potential
Right.
improvements out on the site. Anything that we do on that property to improve or reduce development costs associated with it, of course, are going to increase the marketability. You got different types of developers, the ones that just draw lines on paper and then they sell those lines. Then you got the guys that build and it's ready to build. You buy the lot, it's got the well and septic in it. I'm talking about more rural type stuff. Point being, as we do things there, it's going to make it more attractive. It also increases the potentiality of you can plan better. Right now, it's kind of it comes up to this point. It's right on the eastern edge, but everything beyond that is kind of up in the air. When it's in place, again, certain people can calculate better. They know what the specific assets and things. So any of that's going to help, but it's one of the biggest blocks that we have with the property is that lack of infrastructure. It's not a hurdle that can't be overcome, but it's the biggest cost associated with development on that property would be getting that infrastructure out there any way we can assist that. Plus, what it does for the city, we talk all the time about Munson and serving that property, but all that infrastructure, well, if it's doing it on one side, it's probably going to be able to do it on the other. And it actually will double the footprint of potentiality out there at a minimum. Because, and why I say that is because right now you've got this effectively a wing of property. It just sticks out from the city. When we run infrastructure out to that and it's installed to that edge, well, then logically anything running north and anything running south for quite a distance can potentially develop coming into those systems, whereas right now there's not that opportunity. And it really comes in for the small fish. So the big fish, they can pay it. They've got the pockets, they'll do it. It's the small people, the smaller business, once that's in, that's where their opportunities start to come.
Yeah, and then we have gotten quite a bit of looks recently for the Munson property, so it's been interesting. But that's sort of the linchpin, the balancing act of what's it going to cost us versus what's the cost to build. So I feel like that'd be a really good enticement mechanism. But I think the positive thing is we're getting looks, and kudos to Derek himself, because he's been working the processing of permits and really getting a lot of good feedback in terms of the time that it's taking, how much less time. So I appreciate Derek's efforts, and so we're already getting really good feedback. So appreciate those efforts. The other thing I wanted to get out there, I've got a meeting with RGI and Ricardo Valdez. So we've been talking about grant writing and these kind of things. So that's something I was actually told about them by the folks over at AOC, not AOC, but OIC, excuse me, Anthony Peterson from OIC, which is a great agency. So I just happened to be driving around on that snowy day, and I was kind of looking at the roads. Kudos to the Public Works crew, and I ran into it. They're kind of over by the Best Western, so I just kind of walked in and I said, "Hey, I'm the city manager, and I've heard great things about you from Anthony." And so we scheduled a meeting, and so they seemed really excited to see me, and so I don't know what that's going to come to, but and they were generally like, "Hey, we're glad that you're here, and we'll see how we can help you." And they definitely have written millions of dollars worth of grants, primarily for education, but I think there's ways that the city can work with the school district and work with other agencies to kind of be that glue. So I'm exploring that as well. It's not necessarily lobbying, but it is another bucket of, how do we create this relationship? And, we probably should have leveraged it before, at least explored it. But I felt really good that they were happy that we're exploring that opportunity with them, because they're an incredible resource. So I'm really hopeful that we can develop that relationship. And I mean, we all know community stakeholders that can, perhaps benefit from a great grant writer and people that have that expertise. So I'm also opening that door and seeing where that goes. So mainly that's what I wanted to get out there. I know it's a quick meeting, but I wanted to definitely get the digester information out there and just let the public know what this group has been doing, because we've been really working hard and beating the bushes and meeting with lawmakers. And I think we all caught a cold from Olympia from being in all those offices. But, hopefully it'll pay off, or all of our sicknesses will pay off. But I felt good about it. So that's what I wanted to share, Council.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And yeah, I mean, keep doing what you're doing, right? I mean, opening up doors and opening up resources. I feel like we've had a good productive months. When we can come back and show the constituents that we're actually saving money on the well, right? And then under budget for the boiler. That's kind of what I kind of want to see,
Absolutely.
going forward, not necessarily, it's always over budget or we're spending more. But yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Open up those doors for the city.
Absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes, the public wonders why you hire consultants in certain areas. And, and I'll say in this case, Cuss is well known in the community. He was the city manager of Grandview for many, 50 years. I mean, he was over there a long time. So I felt fortunate that, he could help our organization. And I tell you what, he's paid for himself about 1 million times over with just the savings on the well. So, so he's been great to work with. And, sometimes they really pay off, and he certainly has.
Council, any questions for the manager?
No, I don't have a question, but I'd like maybe to take this opportunity to like ask Raul and the manager if we can just do like a very quick explanation of how this $1.6 million grant, or many grants actually work. I know that there's some confusion, especially right now when we're trying to carve out as much room in the budget and try to find as many funds. And people hear that we are receiving grants. And so now they're saying, well, why don't we use some of that money that we're getting from the grant and we put it to the pool and everybody's happy? So can we explain, maybe take less than 5 minutes to explain how those grants work? I assume they're earmarked. I assume these grants that we're getting in, this 1.6 million, that half's going to be loan, half is coming in as a grant, will only be used for specific things. And I wanted to take this moment to maybe allow us to do a little bit of some breakdown.
That's a great question, because that's the first natural question that folks have is why can't you shift some money? But you're absolutely right, Counselor. They're earmarked for a specific purpose. And if you don't use it for that purpose, you're not going to get it. Debbie and Raul can explain the nuances of the loan versus grant component, because there are some match components. And typically it's not the full match. Usually it's a percentage that we have to have cash on hand or whatever in order to get that. And in this particular case, the loans typically are 1% and sometimes less. I mean, they're really affordable in the scope of the big picture, right? Still a lot of money, but and that's why we were at the legislature beating the bushes for the capital funding, because you could take, if we're able to get some capital funding, we can use that money to actually pay off the loan portion. So it's a little bit of money shifting and paying, but that's why you go to the legislature and beat the bushes. So Raul, did you want to add anything in particular about this loan and how it's broken out?
Yes. So this loan is through the DWSRF, which is the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. So when you apply for these grants, you're stating why you need the money. So right away, right there is the reason you were competitive with some other agency was because of the need. So you applied for a certain amount of money, you specified what you needed it for, and then they rated your project versus against other projects. So we applied for the 1.6. We don't have the funding yet, but obviously once we get the documentation, it'll say what is going to be grant, what's going to be loan, and then for the project that we applied for. So when you apply for a project, whether it's through this agency or through Ecology or any other, is when you apply, you're stating what you need the money for. So if you come under budget, it doesn't mean that this grant now you can use it for anything else that the city may think like, well, like you were saying for the pool or something else, because we have to submit invoices and still prove how we're spending the money so that we can get reimbursed. Right. It's not just money sent and you guys do what you want. We have to, it's all on a reimbursement basis. So we actually pay for whatever that section of the work. We submit the reimbursement, they will review that, and then they'll turn around and reimburse us back for the money that we, sent in for reimbursement.
Yeah.
That answered the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then if I can add, depending on the agency, when you get a loan and a grant, What we would like to do, of course, is do the grant first and then the loan, but it's the opposite. So we have to, the first part of the expenditures are going to use up all the loan. And then whatever's left will get granted to us.
Of course.
And then,
Mhm.
you know, as far as keeping them, you know, where the money's going to be used is the debt service we have to pay back. That comes from the rates. That's included in our rates. So it's very important that, you know, when we are taking a loan out for something, that loan is only used for that very specific project purpose because we have ratepayers who are going to be paying that back.
Thank you so much. for the explanation.
Any further questions? Or maybe we move on? So council, going back to Ms. Hart, I mean, if there's no objection, I want to put her as unexcused. She did not advise myself or the city clerk about her absence, so any objection?
No objection.
She will be unexcused. So, there being no further business to come before council, and without objection, I adjourn this meeting at 6:30. Thank you, everyone.